Hey everyone, my name is Ben Lavender, New York's favorite British mortgage broker. I've been working we are at Madison Mortgage, both Mr. Sean Caufield and myself. We've been working with this team at Madison for what? We've been in business for about a year, 2 years.
Yeah, about a year and some change.
Something like that. And we've been brokers for a few years overall in the business, about 10 years for me. Sean, I think you're pretty close.
Yeah, I'm like 7 or 8 years.
So today we're basically going over hiring, training, and working with an LOA. So this is a very, very common set of questions or a very common subject that comes up in the business because obviously we all want to grow and scale our business. So obviously when I got into the business, I worked as an LOA for the president and CEO of our company, Shah Tarani, who many of you are probably familiar with. And then I went off to be an LO on my own, and now I have my own team. So Sean was an LOA for a while. He's now branched off and he's running his own thing by himself. He worked with another loan officer here at Madison Mortgage that runs his own team, John Ramirez, who some of you may or may not know, but John's a very, very high producer and great human being overall. We all love John. So let's, I'm going to jump into the questions unless, Sean, you want to go over anything first?
No, I'm Sean Caufield, from Madison Mortgage, Team Caufield. I'm lucky to be a colleague of Ben. He's one of the best loan officers I've ever worked with. And
yeah, you better say that.
I truly mean it. You see why people love him, and both of us together, we're like two peas in a pod, and we just want to share this video with you guys. So me being a former LOA for 6-7 years, doubling loan officers' businesses constantly, and Ben having been an LOA and now he has his own LOAs, we just want to share a lot of information on this topic because I know a lot of you need it. So
cool, let's rock and roll. Okay, so first question, what you look for in an LOA? Well, they have to be pretty and smart and this and that. Okay, in all seriousness, this is fairly common, right? It's mostly personality because a lot of this business can be taught, right? We can teach people about debt to income ratios and LTV and all that fun stuff, but at the end of the day, you can't really teach someone to care. You can't teach someone to be, or actually you could make an argument that you can, but it's difficult to teach someone how to be a good communicator, right? And how to be reactive or non-reactive. We want non-reactive people because this business can be extremely reactive. So just to kind of go over that again, it's really the personality is the primary thing that we look for in an LOA because everything else can really be taught. Yeah. Sean, feel free to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, everything can be taught besides a work ethic also, So when you mix personality with work ethic and you have that, combination, which I feel like me and Ben both have, that's when you do great things, right? And you triple your loan officer's business because everybody wants to work with you,
Yeah, great point. Great point. Next question. When should a broker look to add an LOA to their team, and what is the most importance of hiring an LOA? So my opinion, and I think the majority of loan officers that run teams or even coaches in the business will agree with me here, is literally as soon as you can. As soon as you can do it, even if it's financially, it might hurt a little bit in the meantime, but the importance of having an LOA is to work on all the mundane tasks, one, that you don't want to work on as a loan officer, just generally things that you don't enjoy doing. Obviously, that's important, and you could make an argument that that is a luxury, But most importantly, the LOA can work on the day-to-day tedious tasks of sorting out documentation, setting up files. This way, you as a loan officer can work on the most important things, which is generating more business. Or as, you know, I hate using the term because everyone uses it, but it's true. It's, you know, income generating activities, right? Everyone says that, but it's true. As a loan officer, that's what we need to focus on, is talking to realtors, past clients, you know, shaking hands, kissing babies, as they say.
I kiss many babies.
He does, and they're his own babies. So we'll leave that at that. So yeah. So Sean, anything you want to add to that, man?
Yeah. I mean, for sure. You know, an LOA's job should be, you know, I always looked at it as my job to alleviate any problems from the loan officer so they could go out and sell. So I agree with you 100%. And that's what made me so good at being an LOA, was because I didn't bring the issues that I could solve myself to the loan officer. I just handled it myself. And that's how I believe an LOA should do business, you know, is take it on your own time and handle it so the LO can just sell.
Exactly. So that's a great segue into the next question, which is, what are your expectations for an LOA? Well, it depends, because it depends on what functions you want them to perform and obviously what they're capable of performing. So when I bring an LOA on, and the majority of them have literally no experience in the mortgage business, I've never actually hired someone that has worked in the mortgage business before. So it's all about training, right? Getting them set up with a training like Zinix, for instance, is, you know, it's a company that we use to train the bulk of our employees pretty much for everything. UWM, all the success tracks and trainings that they offer as well are key. And we put basically every new hire into one of those programs, if not both, when we bring them on to Madison Mortgage. Okay, but going back to expectations, it depends, right? And it progresses. In the very beginning, it's simple things like client follow-up with documentation, along with sorting out documentation that they actually receive, answering any questions. Obviously, if they're not licensed, they're not going over interest rate, closing costs, or anything like that. And then to take it to another level is to keep our realtor partners informed as the process goes on, right? So if we need, you know, because at the end of the day, the realtors, they need a pre-approval to get an offer in, and they want to know how the loan process itself is going. So generally, when we're trying to pre-approve a client, our LOAs are keeping the realtors up to date with, hey, we're almost at the pre-approval. We just need this, this, and this, because it's extremely common for clients to send 75% of the documents that we need. So it's good to keep them abreast, right? The realtors, they want to know, but also the realtors will help, right? If you say, hey, we need to get this pre-approved, we're just missing one pay stub, and we've already told the borrower, but you know, they're taking their time, then the realtor lets them know as well. It makes them speed up the process a little bit. So as the LOA's career continues, the expectations in terms of what they can do increase, right? They go from doing the basic stuff then to eventually getting licensed, to fully setting up files, selling files, obviously going over closing costs and all that jazz. And as a loan officer, depending again on the level of the LOA, we're only really getting involved when very, very complicated things are happening. You know, let's say an appraisal comes in short, or, you know, I can't even think of something, but say something got messed up in terms of the income and we have to jump in and fix it. You know, again, it depends on the level of the LOA, but, you know, it's basically progresses depending on their career level.
Compensation as well, Ben, right? Like, you know, because we don't want to mess with your compensation, because we're not the ones that are getting, you know, either to go borrow paid, lender paid, whatever, what to charge the borrower. That would be something that you would handle.
Precisely,
because we don't want to mess with. And just to be full disclosure, you know, Ben has one of the, you know, he's actually the only LOA I would consider on my level. His name's Addy Singh, and he is, you know, he's Ben's LOA, and he is excellent. So
yeah, and,
you know,
and to be fair to Addy, I don't even consider him an LOA.
yeah,
He's a
I agree.
licensed loan officer. He knows what he's doing.
Yep.
He's experienced, and
I agree.
You know, he's doing his own thing as well. He's getting his own deals. So
Yep.
Addy is exceptional, and then we have, you know, the other people on the team as well who
Yep.
are climbing. So it's it really depends, again, as far as the expectation goes. For instance, like Addy is licensed, right? He's been
Yep.
doing this for a long time. You wouldn't expect someone that's new in the business to kind of take it to that level. But
Yep.
again, it's all about expectations and how they progress. Okay, so let's go to question number 4. Question number 4. How do you communicate with your LOA? Okay, this is very simple. I have, my team is literally outside my office. So we'll review files together. So basically every single pre-approval that goes out has my eyes personally, right? And Sean, when you were an LOA, I'm sure you did the same thing with John.
Yep, absolutely.
Every time, sit down together, go over income, assets, credit, how the deal is structured, and all that jazz. And in terms of the communication, every single way, we have group text messages for our team. In addition to that, we have group emails, we have team meetings.
Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, I personally don't use Microsoft Teams because it's just, it's quite a bit, right?
Yep.
It's too much, too scattered, but
Yep.
literally every and any means necessary, we're having, you know, I have my team in my office at least, you know, once a day to review files, right? We're not sitting together for 8 hours, but, you know, file review can take anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour a day. So that's a pretty simple one.
There's a line between, like, I feel like, as a loan officer, right, you need to know what deals you have, right? And even though you could have the best LOA in the world, you need to know which pre-approvals are being sent out, which files are coming from which referral sources, right? Because when the listing agent calls you and you say, hey, I don't know this file, it's good to give up power, and a lot of loan officers have an ego, right? And they don't want to give up power. And then when they finally do give up power, some give up too much power. And then, there has to be a middle ground where you can still know all your files, but have that alleviated off your desk, So that's why it's so important to review the files with your LOA, because, there's never enough eyes on a file, to make sure everything's done correctly, Yeah.
Yeah. So on that subject, right, on giving power, right? So the next question is, how do you build trust with your LOA? And I think you can't force trust. That's the truth. Trust takes time. It's a relationship, just like we have relationships with our clients, our realtors. You have to build strong relationships with your own team. And again, you cannot force it. It takes time, and you have to genuinely be interested in their success. So a common theme that we see in the New York mortgage industry, and Sean can attest to this because it's something that he personally experienced before coming over to Madison Mortgage, is not building your team up, right? Is kind of keeping them down in the same place so you can control them. The problem with that is that they don't really grow, right? And the loan officer's fear is that if you overtrain your team, and they become really, really good, and they end up leaving you and doing their own thing. The truth is that is just kind of a reality, right, of things that will happen. People will naturally progress and want to get to the next level. You can either help them and help yourself in doing so, and hopefully you as a loan officer do a good enough job of obviously compensating your employees fairly, but also training them, having good culture, and building a culture where they're happy and they don't want to leave you. But trying to play the game of, I'm not going to teach my LOA how to run LP or DO, DU, right? And I'm only going to teach them this so I can keep them down and control them. It's really a narrow mindset, and it's selfish as well. But at the end of the day, if you're not teaching them, they're going to realize that, and they're going to end up going somewhere else. So the last thing that you want to do is really keep your LOA down, and that goes along with building trust, right? They're not going to trust you if they sense that you're withholding stuff to kind of control them. So I'm going to leave that at that. I think I said a fair amount on that, but Sean, as I mentioned, you've experienced a lot of that before you came over to Madison. So you can elaborate.
I mean, absolutely. It's one of the biggest things I feel like loan officers do is, they don't gain that trust with their LOA, and then there becomes resentment, right? And they're, as an LOA, like I take it personally because, even though people say it's business, it's not, because when I'm working at 11 o'clock at night to work on your files that you're getting, paid on, and obviously I'm getting compensated as well, but I'm not getting compensated out of hours, right? So I'm working on that because I love you and I want you to succeed. And when you don't return the favor and you don't want me to succeed, now I instantly, forever, for life, I'm sorry I'm built this way, but coming from New York, you kind of grow up not trusting anybody, and when that happens, it makes it even worse, because it's like I started to trust this person and now I'm trying to learn and grow and they won't help me. And if it wasn't for my wife, Nicole Corrado, who runs operations here at Madison, she's the smartest person I know when it comes to guidelines and income. And, Ben can attest to that as well. She's an animal. If it wasn't for her teaching me, I would have never grown to where I am now, and I'm super grateful for it.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. So, okay, what tasks do your LOA have? Okay, so we kind of touched on this. It depends on their level, right? But the basics is documentation, follow up with clients, right? Organizing, prepping documentation, obviously, depending on their level, calculating income, going through bank statements, identifying large deposits, basically any potential issue, and then setting up a 1003. Right? If they're licensed, we have them take a 1003, okay, and structure the file to its full extent with that documentation. And then same goes with what I mentioned before, keeping the realtors in the loop, thanking referral sources for the referrals that come through. So that's really the basics of that. Sean, was there anything that John had you do that maybe I didn't mention when you were in LOA?
I just went over everything with the client, like I went over the monthly payment and all that stuff to make sure the client was comfortable with the payment, right? Because that's the most important thing on when it comes to a purchase or a refi, right? Is it the monthly payment? Because even though they can afford a $900,000 house, doesn't mean they want that payment on them, So I would do stuff like that. I would just go, on the checklist that I'm going to show you guys in a little bit. I could go through what, step by step, what I actually did, so you guys can get a hang of it.
Yeah. And to add to that, obviously, the more mundane tasks, I can't believe I forgot, but like updating like CRMs and, spreadsheets and stuff like that to keep track. I mean, that should go without saying, but there you go, just in case.
Yep.
What training and strategies do we use for our LOAs? I touched on this before. The UWM trainings we use all the time. We're huge on Zinix. Literally everyone that comes through our door spends a good amount of time on Zinix. I also did Zinix at one stage myself, like 6 to 8 years ago.
Yep, me too.
Right. So it was very, very good training. We love Zinix.
That's what's amazing about Shah and Madison, right? Because, when I was hired and as an LOA, they just threw me into the fire, right? And I learned like that, I guess. But, here, everybody who comes in at Madison, which is why Shah is like a genius to me, he makes sure everybody goes through at least a month of training before they even step into their roles, so they're not thrown into the fire, and they actually know what they're talking about by the time the month is over. So,
yeah. And to add to that, when we sit together to do file review, in my opinion, that really is hands-on training with the LO,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
we're going over with our team, you know, what they missed. In one way, we're double checking, right? We're double checking that they set the file up correctly. But then at the end of the day, if you send out a pre-approval, it's your name as a loan officer that's on that pre-approval. So we're going over, you know, things that they may have missed. I'm recalculating the income every single time. I'm going over the bank statements, the cash requirement, potential reserves, anything before a pre-approval gets my approval on it. And in a way, that's training because we're going over that with the LOA.
Yeah, I did. You know, I just to add something in here. You know, I didn't really like when I came over to Madison. You know, I thought I was great. You know, I thought my 1003s were the best, but I actually learned that, you know, my 1003s were actually sloppy compared to like the way Shah expects us to do a 1003. And that's the way that he expects us is the right way. So I really learned how to do a complete 1003 with John Ramirez. When COVID happened, he would do Team Viewer, which gives us access to each other's computers. And he would go line through line with me, checking every file I did. And if I didn't do it right, I would go and fix it myself. So I learned, you know, so that's why my 1003s now are so sharp, you know?
Yeah.
Even though the new 1003 is.
Yeah, not a fan, but what can
Yeah.
you do? Okay, so how do you stay in front of customers while still utilizing your LOA to build relationships with clients, and we'll say client/realtors? So for loan officers, it's a very big fear that you bring on an LOA or, you know, even a licensed loan officer who then becomes the main contact, especially as you get super, super busy between your clients and your realtors. And then every loan officer is worried that that LOA is going to build that relationship and kind of steal it and take over. So as a loan officer, hiring an LOA is not an excuse to get lazy and have them just do the work for you, right? Because otherwise that could happen, right? It's possible, right? So what you have to do as a loan officer is still be involved. You have to still care. You can't just, you know, kick back, put your feet up and let them roll with it. Otherwise, you will potentially lose that business. And also your realtor partners who are referring you that business, that's how a lot of them see it, right? Especially if you're not involved. So every single client is still always hearing from me in one form or another. Same thing with the realtors. So to give you a very basic example, and this is something that I hammer home with my team, is that upon taking, for instance, like a basic application for a pre-approval, the first thing the LOA is going to do is to update the realtor and say, you know, and typically it's done via text message and I'm copied on the text. So this way the realtor knows I'm still involved. Is, you know, they'll send a text saying, hey, we just took an application on your referral, Mr. John Smith. Application looks very promising. They said that they're going to get us the documentation by the end of the day. We'll keep you posted. So that does two things, right? It tells the realtor the progress of the file, and it tells them that we're responsive as well. We're keeping them up to date, which everyone knows realtors' number one complaint is lack of communication. So you're already taking care of that. But the second thing is that when they're sending them a text saying, hey, this is so-and-so from Ben Lavender's office, we just did everything that I just said, right? It's still keeping you in the conversation, right? You can't have your team take you out of the conversation, no matter how inconvenient it is for you. So obviously make sure that you're part of that. It's a good strategy. You could use it for email as well and whatever else. But if you're copied on it and you're communicating with them, it's a very simple tactic amongst 50 other things, right? Obviously, your name is on the pre-approval. You want to personally congratulate clients on their pre-approval, their accepted offer, whatever the case may be. Just make sure that you're still involved, because, you know, there's no contract to hang on to relationships, right? You can't have an LOA and a realtor sign a contract saying, hey, you know, because at the end of the day, if your LOA ends up building the relationship with the realtor and the clients are going to go over to them and they can run away with your business, right? It's just a reality. So just make sure that you're still involved. And yeah, that's the only real way to handle that. Sean, feel free to add.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, and you just have to do the right thing, right? Like, you know, I'm still getting calls from my prior LO, you know, my prior boss's clients, and I'm forwarding those clients right away because it's the right thing to do, you know, not because I have to, and, you know, no, because it's the right thing to do. And you have to have that trust for your LOA. And trust that they do the right thing. And, you know, if they don't, that's their problem, you know, not yours. So,
yeah. So Sean is a good and ethical human being, right? But there are a lot of LOAs that wouldn't be nearly as kind as Sean is. And the only way to really protect yourself from that is what we mentioned before is,
yes,
you know, staying involved, keep communicating.
Yes.
Can't just, again, hire an LOA and pump the brakes off. So
no matter how much work, Ben is right, no matter how much work that LOA does on the file, you have to keep making sure the realtor knows it's you. It's you, it's your team, it's your office. Like Ben said, every time I pick up a call when I was in LOA, I say, hey, this is Sean from John Ramirez's office, not, hey, this is Sean from Madison Mortgage. Because if they hear Madison Mortgage, they're just going to think of me, right? They won't think of John. But that's why it's so important. Like Ben said, it's a great point.
Yeah.
Great point.
Well said. That key, and I have to say, I picked that up from Mr. Andres Munar, who is
Papi Chulo?
yeah, exactly. So it's something that, you know, I talked to him at an event, and he was, at the time, it was just like myself, and I had one LOA at the time, and I was, you know, saying, because that was a fear of mine, right? So, and he was saying, like, you have to train your staff to mention your name on every piece of communication, right? So that's a key part. That's really it for my questions. I suppose, Sean, you can kind of take over here and get into the LOA stuff.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I'll add on. So take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Lavender. Cheerio.
I love Cheerios.
All right, I'm the ginger mortgage broker, and Ben is the British mortgage broker. Okay. So the first question that you know, is being asked of me to answer is, what was your mortgage experience before becoming an LOA? Do you think it's important to have mortgage experience? This is a great question, right? I didn't have any experience before. I actually, you know, I worked at a group home for, you know, Down syndrome adults. And, you know, it was a residential home, and I took care of them for 8 years, actually, before I got into the mortgage business, where, you know, you give them medicine, you feed them, you take care of them, you shower them. You know, that's what I was doing before I got into the mortgage business. And I was playing football with two of my buddies on my team, my Sunday team. They actually own their own branches. So one of them was like, Sean, you're great with people. You know, you would be excellent in the mortgage business. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And, you know, I knew I couldn't do this for the rest of my life, you know, with the adults, because it just didn't pay enough. And I have to, you know, feed my family in the future, right? So I end up going to work, you know, as a telemarketer first, and I got thrown into an office and given a book of leads from 1962, you know, and told to call. And the guy who was supposed to train me didn't train me at all. And I was calling people, and you know, I didn't close one loan, and I was there for like 8 months. So even though I was really good on the phone, I didn't know what I was talking about, and it was really uncomfortable, you know. And the clients could tell, because I would have to defer every question to the loan officer, you know. And I never end up closing a deal there, but it didn't knock me down. You know, it made me want to be like, I think I like this. I need to go to some place where I can learn and they can help me. So I end up going to another mortgage brokerage. And that's where I really, you know, learned. My wife got me back into the business. I did leave the business for like 6-8 months, and I mentored some kids in Brooklyn. And my wife said, hey, Sean, I'm working for a new loan officer. He works with NYPD. FDNY, and my dad's retired NYPD detective. So she's like, Sean, this will be a great job for you, and he's a great guy. So, and she's like, I'll teach you everything. Don't worry. You don't have to worry. So credit to her. She brought me back in, and that's where I really learned everything.
So to add to that, Sean, do you think it's important to have mortgage experience before entering the business?
I didn't really know. So it took, even though I had Nicole teaching me, I didn't feel comfortable till about a year and a half, that like to calculate income, to, I look at mortgages like math, right? Once you get it, you get it. You know what I mean? Like, and until I got it, I really was like, what's this mortgage process? Like, it goes to an underwriter. I still didn't get it a year in, So I would say to that question, I do think it is important, but I don't think it's necessary if you have the right training in place.
Yeah, and I'll add to that too, like we were saying before, that we put everyone into a training. Not everyone has that set up. When I got into the business, I wasn't in Zinix. We didn't have UWM to train us. And I basically learned from reviewing files with Shah one-on-one for a very long period of time.
Yeah.
Right. So also to keep in mind, like, people, just because someone has, let's say, 10 years of experience, 20 years, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be a good fit with you, the way that you do business. Right. Everyone knows it's very, very difficult to unteach bad habits. So it's common for us to bring on people that have been in the business for a long time, and they can't adapt to how we do business because they were comfortable or whatever it was, right? But in my opinion, it's definitely not necessary, but in many cases it can help.
Ben, how long did you take to feel comfortable as an LOA?
I still don't feel comfortable as an LOA. As an LOA, I mean, keep in mind that I entered the business when I was 22, 23. It was my first job out of college, and I had no sales experience. I had didn't know anything about financing in general, regardless whether it's related to a home or not. So for me, it definitely took a couple years. There are other people, for instance, Gabe Raban, who works on Eric Gasper's team here at Madison Mortgage. Gabe's been in the business for just under a year, I think now, and he's doing fantastic. But he also had sales experience before he came on board. He's a lot. So it depends, but it's different for everyone.
Everybody's different.
But just because it might take someone longer, for me, it definitely took longer than the average person, at least like a year or two before I felt really comfortable. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing. There's still potential for greatness.
So the next question is, what were some trouble areas you experienced that other brokers can help new LOAs avoid? That's a really good question. So I think guidelines, time management, and organization. Those are the three most important things as a LOA and as a loan officer. I've known great loan officers that are great with guidelines, but they have terrible time management skills, and they'll be on the phone for 45 minutes with a client that they should have hung up with 40 minutes ago. And it just happens because they don't care. It's the brutal truth, right? We have to be truthful with ourselves. I even caught myself doing it, and I was like, wait, I gotta put an alarm clock, 5-10 minutes each call, because I need to maximize my time. And I really feel like those three things are the most important. What do you feel?
And let me just polish up kind of what you said. Obviously, I think what Sean's really saying is spending too much time on the phone with people that we cannot help, right? So I, as a, just a general rule, and Sean, I know you operate the same way. If we can't help someone, I hate just saying, I can't help you. Good luck. Right. We give them some type of guidance, whether, if they don't have enough money to buy a home yet, or their credit isn't a position, we'll refer them over to, our favorite, Sam Parker, my credit guy, right? And say, get with Sam to get your credit up to par. We don't just hang up on people and say, good luck.
I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that.
I know you didn't, but just in case anyone's watching thinks that you did. So obviously, but we're not going to spend an hour on the phone with someone who has no money in the bank, doesn't qualify, but we'll spend a few minutes giving them an idea of where they need to be and how to get there in order to qualify. So we definitely give them that guidance. Other areas that LOAs should avoid, I can't think of anything specific. You know, guidelines is definitely a key one, Sean. Good that you mentioned that. We'll roll into the next one. Do you have any tricks or tips to stay organized as an LOA?
Yes, I do. And one of them is a big thing. As an LOA, you're working on massive files. Like at one point I've done 60, 80 pipelines, you know, at once, 60, 80 loans in the pipeline, just myself, you know, dealing with all those clients. And sometimes the loan officer will come up to you and be like, Sean, I need this done right now. And I'm in the middle of another file, right? And I'm organizing myself. So what I'm trying to say is, if you're in the middle of something, make sure you finish it. Yeah, you know, it's okay to say to the loan officer, hey, Ben, you know, I promise you I'll get it done. I just need to finish this, because if I get out of it now and go back in, I'm gonna lose my place. So that's what I feel is a huge one, is making sure that if you start something, to complete it before moving on to the next thing.
Yeah. And it's a good thing that you said about like prioritization as well.
Yes.
Right. Yep. So if something needs to be done urgently, you know, obviously address it. Like if a realtor needs a pre-approval to get an offer in because highest and best is by 12 p.m. I know we all hate the highest and best, but, right? It happens.
It's a reality, right?
Yeah. Versus like reviewing a file where the person like wants to get pre-approved but isn't so serious, and that goes back to trust with your team, because sometimes you don't have the direct communication, but the realtors, the clients are blowing up your phone and you need to get things moving. So that trust is definitely key. And in terms of staying organized, right, and tips and tricks in general, basically we write everything down. You know, my team has a priority list of things that they need to attack every day. Things, you know, before they leave, they write down urgent things they need to do the next day. Yep. We're also keeping a spreadsheet and tracking everything as well. So there has to be some level of organization, whether it's those things that I just mentioned, or perhaps you're using a more advanced CRM to keep track of everything.
I was so happy. I watched Todd Bitter's one of his videos that he put out, you know, and one of the things that he says he does, and shout out to Todd, the GOAT. Thanks for teaching all us brokers, you know, your tricks and tips, and sharing with us. But one of the things that he shares is he writes down the files that he needs to work on before he goes to bed. Yep. And he knows exactly what he needs to do in the beginning of the day and get it done by the middle of the day, and then the second batch of his day. And I did that actually before I heard Todd do it. I've been doing that for a long time, because when I come in, it refreshes my memory. I leave my notebook actually on top of my keyboard, and I put what I need to do when I come in, so that when I come in the morning, I can't forget, you know. And it's super important to have that. And like Ben said, you know, some people it might be a CRM, but for me, it's my notebook, because when I write it down, I remember it, you know.
Yeah. And the other benefit to that, other than obviously just the organizational part, but something that we deal with as a loan officer or even an LOA is stress, right? So just by simply brain dumping, right, jotting it down, it gives you the ability to kind of disconnect and come back the next day without, you know, thinking to myself, can't forget about that file. So it's just another small benefit.
And problem solving is the like, to me, the like what I think separates myself from all the other LOAs is my personality. Number one, people really love me for who I am. I don't try to change who I am for anybody.
And ginger.
And I'm ginger, you see. You know, and just, you know, just being on point, you know, constantly, you know, like just, you know, making sure you stay on top with clients, and you make sure you update your LO, and making sure you tag your LO on important emails, and, you know, make sure that he's getting new relationships as well, you know. And then when you become your own LO, that's when you know, there's so many things that I learned from being an LOA that I'm using now, and that I'm so grateful for it, you know. Because some people just become an LO and they never been an LOA before. So this is why we're making a video, to kind of help you guys that haven't been an LOA know what to do. All right, guys. So now I'm gonna, I made an LOA checklist about a year ago that I shared with the group, and I just kind of want to go over the touch points on it. So here is the checklist. So the first thing is the initial contact with the borrower or buyer, right? When you get a lead, and if you're not calling that lead, if you're giving it to your LOA, you send their contact info to the LOA. Say, hey, this is a referral from this realtor. They're looking to buy. Please get in contact with them. So then you call them. You take a full application, or if you say Flowify, which we started using recently, which is amazing, you put their info in there and it will send the checklist and application for you. So it actually does both. Or you could do it the old way and take a full 1003, ask all the questions that, you may need, pull the credit, let the borrowers know about their credit. A lot of the times LOs make that mistake. And, whenever I get a file from another lender, I'm like, wait, the LO didn't go over your credit report with you? And they're like, no, every time. So make sure you do that. It's super important that the borrower understands their credit when it comes to pricing or, things like that. They know their scores and all that, because Credit Karma could tell them 780 and then they're a 650, and then they're wondering why they have to pay points or whatever it may be. Send the documentation checklist and online application via email, and confirm the receipt, right? And I put very important there because you want to make sure they got your email, because when you follow up with them and they say, oh, no, Sean, I never got it, a day or two has passed already, they could have gotten you their documents, but when you hold them accountable and you say, okay, you got it, awesome, please get me the documents and fill out the application as soon as possible, and I'll have your file review within 24 hours or whatever your timeline is. And this is what it used to look like here when we were using Blink. And we would request the documents, and no pictures are allowed. And of course, people always send pictures, but you do your best with what you got, right? So we always keep track on of where the what loans we have, where they came from. So we always put the loan on the Google Sheets, and we include who's the referral source, so that we can always thank the referral source and keep them updated throughout the process. That's why if my LO has a question and I worked on the file, he could just see, we had notes, he could see what the last note was, so he's fully updated even if I don't speak to him. And then gentle follow-up if they do not supply the docs within 1 to 2 business days. I know it says 2, but 1 to 2 business days. I usually text the borrower that are savvy, just so I stay in their minds, because if they're either shopping you around or what's the case, you want to know that Sean Caufield from Madison Mortgage is on top of your head, and I'm following up with you no matter how busy I am, because you're important to me. Once you receive all the documents, we used to use Dropbox. Now we use OneDrive, and we keep them labeled like this still. So we have your assets, your credit, your income, miscellaneous, real estate owned, and subject property. And also we have a pre-qual one now too, where we add the pre-quals in there. So you can, change it at any time. And then this is how we would label it. Okay. So you got your 1040, 2020. 1040, 2019. Pay stub, I usually just put the date of the pay date, right? So that the processors know when the date was. When we used to do UWM to be determined, with the underwriter's income, I would print the results and put it in here so that they knew where I was doing the income from. Verification of employment, and then the W-2s, okay? Once all the documentation is in, you could do your income analysis to see if the debt income ratios are in line to qualify with whatever program you are using. After you review the file with your loan officer and the file is approved, you as an LOA will prep the pre-approval letter. This will allow the buyers to go look at houses with your realtor partners. Send pre-approval to your referral partner and let the buyer know it was sent. If they ask for a copy of the pre-approval, send it to them. If they don't, keep it that way so that they don't shop around your trusted referral partner with their pre-approval.
Sean, go over that part again. I think that's important.
Okay, so send pre-approval to the referral partner, not to the buyer, right? So if say John sent me the referral and it's a buyer that I just pre-approved, I'm sending it to John only. And I'm telling him what the max is and all the numbers, and if they need a concession or whatever the case may be. And I'm only sending it to him, and I'm calling the borrower, hey, John, from Coldwell Banker, I sent him your pre-approval, so you could go look at houses now. If you need anything at all, please contact me, or John, now you could go look at houses. And it's super important that, because when the buyer has a copy of the pre-approval, they can shop around now with the realtors. If they don't, the realtor's gonna, obviously, if they really want to change realtors, the new realtor will call you for a copy, right? But it doesn't allow them to go into an open house with the pre-approval and maybe use just a listing agent. And, you want to go into depth on that?
Yeah. So to add to that, that's a procedure that I don't follow.
Got it.
Right. I always send a buyer a copy of their pre-approval, because sometimes if you don't, they use that as ammunition to go somewhere else. Right. It's like, I supplied all this documentation, you pulled my credit, and I don't even have a letter myself. I have to ask a realtor.
Yeah. I get it.
So some clients don't mind, some realtors don't mind as well, especially I think that method that you just went over works very well when the client has no idea what to do, right? They're completely clueless. But for the client that kind of knows how the whole process works, they want a copy of the pre-approval themselves.
Yeah.
So what we do is that my team and I, we send a copy of the pre-approval to the client and to the realtor, because I'll give you an example, right? Because there are loan officers in my market who use that strategy, and I use that strategy against them, right? So they send it directly to the realtor, and then the client calls me because they were recommended by whoever, another realtor, they came across me online, whatever. And then I'm like, okay, so how much will you pre-approve with? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? You supplied your documentation, this, that, everything. It's like, yeah, they just told me verbally. They're like, if I need an actual pre-approval, I have to ask my realtor for it, or when I'm placing an offer. And I use that as ammunition. I'm like, what kind of shady place doesn't give you a pre-approval letter? That's weird. So no offense, I guess.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
I guess that's where,
So if the buyer ever I just want to make it clear, if the buyer ever asks for it, we give it to them immediately, right? We're not holding it from them, right? And I write a detailed email to the borrower so they do see it in writing. So I write, your max purchase price is this, a down payment of this. Closing costs are going to be around this, right? Your interest rate will be around this, and that's why I feel we never really got pushback for doing it like this, because I was so,
because you're at least sending them something.
I sent them the email, and usually 9 out of 10 times they end up staying with that realtor. Like I said, the realtor is the one sending you that business, and when they use another realtor, it kind of feels shitty because you don't want to treat your referral partner like that and close a deal without them that they gave you. Yep. So we do the best that we can, right, to help our referral partners.
Yeah.
Once the buyer gets an accepted offer, you will prep the Encompass file or Calyx or Arrive, whatever you may use, file with the updated numbers. And also, if it has been months, they have been looking to make sure you get updated documents, because they may have gotten a pay increase and it may make the file stronger. They may have missed time, which will make the file worse, right? They may have spent their money in the bank, So you need to get that money. You need to get those assets, those pay stubs. If it's a new year, you got to get the W-2. And that's super important, guys. Super important. I can't stress that enough, how many times that, I got updated documents or re-pulled the credit and they didn't qualify and we had to make it work, by adding a co-borrower.
Money. $7.
Make it rain. Money.
Let me actually just add something to that, Sean. So Something that we do procedurally, because that's what you mentioned before, Sean, happens quite a bit, right? When you pre-approve them, sometimes it takes them a while to find something, everything's expired. So just to make life easier, I have, for my team, we have signatures saved in Outlook, in addition to a Flowify quick pack to request updated documentation. This way they get us the updated documents, because if a lot of time transpires between pre-approval to accepted offer, like you just said, who knows what could have changed, right? Yeah. Despite us telling them a million times, don't make any major changes to your finances, whether it's changing jobs or, you know, a new car loan, whatever, without telling us. Sometimes they do it anyway, and we have to verify before we submit a file, right? So that's just a quick, easy way, is to have a signature prepped, or again, a Flowify quick pack to request updated documentation. Sorry, Sean, go ahead.
It's okay. So the next thing I would do is verify the purchase price, verify the property taxes. You know, you can't always go off what the realtor tells you. You know, there's been deals where I even myself, I made a mistake and I went off what the realtor said and I didn't verify it. And it actually cost us a deal because the village tax in New York, it could be very high, and it was like another $4,000. And the guy didn't want that high of a payment, so it ended up killing the deal. Yep. And I never, ever made that mistake again.
It's also specific to our market, right? Because it's harder to verify taxes here. In other states, it's a little bit easier.
And you know, from there, once you get everything set and you have all the new documents, all the new, you know, all the new numbers, you send it to the bank where, you know, the buyers will get the disclosures, and then they'll review it with you and e-sign. Once they e-sign, the processor usually, in our case, the processors will take it over from there. And I just put a note down here. I said, I've been in LOA for 6-7 years at this point, and my key to success is my relationship with these clients and realtors. I go above and beyond for them, and that has grown my LO's business significantly, which means my pay has doubled as well. Remember, you get what you put in. My advice is learn your guideline. Put it right here. My advice is learn your guidelines, learn your debt to income ratios and what is the maximum, so you know what they could qualify for at the maximum. Learn to calculate income. Salary is super easy. Self-employment is pretty simple too, even though it's gotten harder over the last months with COVID. And you'll get the hang of it after you do it a couple times, and your LO will teach you this the way that they do it. You know, everybody has their own way, and most of all, love what you do. You know, I love helping people. I truly love helping people. Like, for me, it's the relationships, and I know Ben's the same way. Like, it's not about the money. The money comes with the relationships, and we're grateful for that. And I do it because I love to see people happy. I love to talk to people. I'm a huge people person, and basically, you get to see them, buy a new home and, refinance into a payment that saves them $1,000 a month and gets them debt free. Like, that's life changing, and you're helping them with that. And, borrowers always know when you're afraid, guys. They always know. So always come off kind, but always come off confident, because we know those buyers out there that think they know everything. You got to be very firm with them and be like, listen, I this is my profession. I do this every day. You might see things on the news, but
Sean, what do you mean by afraid?
I mean, like, sometimes people cower down when borrowers and realtors go at them, right? Yeah. And they're scared they might lose that client or lose that realtor. But actually, I think the realtors and clients respect it when you go at them, back at them and reciprocate that. Like, wait, I'm the one that's a professional here. I'm the one that does this every day of my life. I know these guidelines and these debt to income ratios better than anybody. So I'm telling you, this is what it is, and that's what it is. I can even, and then usually I write them an email and show them the guidelines, whatever may be the case. Everything's different, but yeah, so we're the professionals when it comes to getting a loan, right? So when they come at you and say, no, the rates are this, the rates are that, And you're like, wait, no, the rates aren't that, because I'm looking at the rate sheet right now, and that's not what the rate is. You might have seen Quicken Loans, give you a rate that says in the bottom that it's 8 points to get, but that's not how we work. So that's what I meant, Benny.
Okay, yeah, fair. So something to, I guess we could kind of recap here is that what Sean was just mentioning at the end is that like he truly cares, right? He really cares about his clients, the customer experience. He, as an LOA, he cared about making his LO look good. So what I'm getting at is like during the first 45 minutes, we were just kind of going over the process and things that an LOA does, or how they can help grow the business, tasks. All that stuff is great, but if they don't care, then none of that stuff is going to actually really work, right? If the LOA is just like going through it piece by piece, cool, yeah, they don't really connect with the client. Don't get me wrong, it will work, but the client, your realtor partners, won't have an exceptional experience. You need the combination of having a system with an LOA that actually cares, right? You combine those two, and it's a recipe for success and a recipe for growth for everyone, not just you as a loan officer, but for your team as well, right? That's one of the reasons why Sean has grown, and now he's doing his own thing as a LO. It's, you need all that, right? You have all those ingredients, you will climb to the top.
Perfectly said, Ben. Perfectly said. You put it, that was what I was thinking, but I couldn't word it that way.
So it's okay. I'm British,
Yes, the English really comes out of you.
Yeah. So, Sean, anything else you want to touch on there?
I'm finally happy, AIME's putting out something about, being an LOA and some tips. And I know a lot of you guys have asked. And to be honest, I was very proud to be an LOA. I took it with pride, that I can help a loan officer grow their business so much, with the help of me and him, and to help grow my knowledge from the LO. I really do. I took really great pride in it. And you just got to find yourself somebody that just cares. Like Ben said, you need somebody who cares.
Yeah, can't fake it.
Can't fake it.
So again, guys, this is Ben Lavender, New York's favorite British mortgage broker, and
Sean Caufield, New York's favorite Ginger's mortgage broker.
That's so awesome. I love it. Love it.
From Madison Mortgage, we love you guys. We're so happy to be a part of the broker family, and we just want to thank you all for tuning in today.
Love you.